Well, well, well. I have just finished watching the Apple Worldwide Developers Conference keynote for 2018, and it was my plan to bring you a feature-packed video, something very exciting, upbeat and positive. And I've come away from the keynote where I would normally take at least 30 minutes to an hour to sort of digest what had been announced, and I thought there's no need this time around. I'm going to cover off some of the highlights that I picked up on from the keynote. I've got my handy notes here, and also open up the discussion to you so that you can leave me any comments in the live chat, or indeed if you're watching this after the live broadcast, you can leave me some comments in the comment section below. I think that we do this year on year, and I'm guilty of it as well. I go into these worldwide developers conferences and really have my wish list there, my hopes that Apple will deliver something sort of tangible, like a hardware product, which does happen from time to time. And there was one product announced during the keynote, and it was a watch band with an accompanying watch face, which is pretty much all we can call hardware. There was no talk about the wireless charging stand, the Air Charger, whatever they called it, that they announced last year. Maybe they'll just quietly add that to the App Store, or sorry, to the Mac Store at some time. There was no hardware at all. So for those of you who were expecting perhaps a new HomePod speaker mini or new MacBook Pros like I was hoping for, or even an insight like I talked about yesterday, just a little look, a glimmer of hope for the new Mac Pro, there was none of that. So supposedly that's going to be covered in another event, or indeed it's going to be sort of updated silently on the Apple website. What we did get was what we all expected, which was updates to iOS, WatchOS, tvOS and macOS. And there were quite a lot of features, but it did drag on a bit. So I'm going to try and give you a really concise sort of rundown on the main bits that caught my attention. Before I do so, this is a live broadcast, so of course a big hello. We'll do the first 5 because there's plenty of you in the live chat. So the first 5 are Business Gadgets, Sophie G, Morgan Wright, Andrew Walker and Sam Duffy. Thank you very much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. These are my thoughts, so counteract them, discuss them in the live chat, and I'll try and come back into the live chat a little bit later on just to answer any questions or pick up on any of your comments. So we started with iOS 12. It's primarily about system performance, which is a good thing, so much more responsive iOS, and Apple are also focusing on older devices as well. So this will go all the way back to, I believe they said, the iPhone 5, and they were even looking at performance improvements on these older devices. And then they moved on to augmented reality, and I just let out verbally, oh come on, a new augmented reality measurement app. A tape measure, basically a digital tape measure. Yeah, it's got some nice tricks up its sleeve, but it's very gimmicky. The Photos iOS app now has search suggestions. There's a Siri upgrade. Any app can now expose shortcuts to Siri, and you can tell it what you want it to do. So you have to train Siri. Rather than Apple making improvements, you have to help Siri make the improvements. And this, to me, I was following it on Twitter as well, there was no talk about making Siri better. So it's still far behind Google Assistant. It's so many years behind, and I was very disappointed with that. The only sort of glimmer of hope that I pulled out of the iOS 12 updates was that we're now getting grouping in notifications. Finally, that is going to be a thing. Memoji, the animojis that you can make look by yourself. Well, where have I seen that before? Where have you seen it before? Come on, Apple. That was absolutely ridiculous. And we were already, I think, almost an hour in to the keynote when we were talking about Memoji for a long time. Group FaceTime, that was a nice announcement though. We can now have up to 32 simultaneous participants in a FaceTime chat, but there was no mention throughout about stability improvements for iOS. They must know that they're there. They do know that they're there, but they're not going to acknowledge them. So they didn't talk about anything about stability improvements, only about really sort of overall system performance. Then they moved on to WatchOS 5. We've got a lot of new features here. 7-day competition challenges, a new yoga workout type and a new hiking workout type as well. New runner features including cadence tracking, automatic workout detection. I must admit that's a very good feature because sometimes you do forget to start your workout. There's also a new Apple Podcasts app and some other apps coming to WatchOS 5, and then that new watch band and watch face was announced as well. Then Apple moved on to Apple TV OS, or tvOS for short. The big feature here, which I think is really cool, is Dolby Atmos support. There's also some new content and provider announcements, no sign-on for providers as well, and then I fell asleep. Literally, I did close my eyes. In fact, I actually tweeted this out during the keynote announcement that this was the first WWDC that I got up and left the room and made a cup of tea without rushing back, and then just came back and continued where I'd left off. So maybe I missed something. I'm sure I didn't miss a one more thing, but maybe I missed something else. macOS, which is of great interest to me. I'm a big user of macOS. I use macOS High Sierra on my Mac Pro. I use macOS Sierra on my iMac, and I think I'm on High Sierra on my MacBook Pro as well. The new macOS is going to be called macOS High. Not really. It's going to be called macOS Mojave, and I know it's not pronounced like that. macOS Mojave, which has got a dark mode. So this was leaked. Apparently, quite a few videos that leaked this as well were copyrighted, or given a copyright strike, so Apple knew this was a leak. It's good for many. I know a lot of people like dark mode, where you're sort of inverting a lot of the text. You get white text on a black background. It's not for me. I suffer from this sort of image retention issue, but a lot of people will really welcome that. Dynamic desktop also allows the system to auto change between modes, so as the day progresses from morning to night time, it will automatically transition into this sort of dark mode if you set it to do that. We've also got desktop stacks. I think this was a really nice feature. If you've ever got a desktop with loads of icons all over it, it will automatically organise those into little stacks of icons, which can be scrubbed through to preview. Really very good. Also in the Finder, we've got a new gallery view, which is great for previewing and even doing simple edits on photos. That was quite nice. We've also got iOS-like editing in screen capture, which I wasn't that impressed with. News app and the Home app are both coming to macOS. Improved security across the board as well. In fact, talking about security, Safari now has or will have tracking protection, and it's shutting down the likes of things like like buttons or favourite buttons, even comments fields in discussion areas that can be used even if you don't sort of click on them to track you from website to website. So they're shutting down that, and it will give you a warning if a website is going to track you using those features, so you can decide what you share. I think that was really a very welcome addition. And then Craig also said about them not merging iOS and macOS, which is a good thing. They're keeping them as separate operating systems, but what they will be doing starting in 2019 is allowing developers to easily port their iOS apps to run on macOS. So that could be a good thing, as long as they do keep them separate. There are some really good iOS apps that I would welcome being able to use on my desktop Mac as well. And all of these updates will be available later this year, and all of them free as well, all free updates, which is a really good thing. And that was it. Wow, that was it. How long did that take me to cover? Under 10 minutes. Your concise recap of what was just over 2 hours of the Apple keynote, condensed down into 10 minutes for you. Anyway, let's take a look inside the live chat, and then I'll give you just my closing thoughts. Sam Kibbe says, hey Dave, very disappointed about the lack of hardware. Wonder when it'll be announced. I think we'll see new MacBook Pros within the next 3 months. That's my prediction. And they will just be quietly launched on the Apple online store. James Briggs, I was very disappointed in no new Apple hardware. As were we all, James. Very, very disappointed. Darren Bird welcomes group FaceTime. I think that was a really good demonstration of group FaceTime as well. It had lots of little thumbnails of who you were talking to on the screen of your device. And then as the person you're speaking to talks, they were brought to the forefront in a bigger sort of preview. So really nice way of doing it. And the fact that it can handle up to 32 participants, very, very impressive. David James also saying, I think macOS got the best updates. I really do agree there. Morgan Wright, I like the new performance improvements. Impressive that they are still supporting the iPhone 5S. I don't think they've gone too far with the emoji thing. Darren Bird, they are not going to admit the iOS is flawed. Very, very true. Very true indeed. And Andrew Walker chiming in with, he thinks animojis are a waste of time. Apple seem to love them. Come on Apple, time to catch up. And I agree, when animojis were introduced in iOS 11 and the iPhone 10, I used them for a few days, admittedly, and then it completely, the gimmick wore off and I didn't use them again since. Also because I wasn't using an iPhone 10 from that day forwards, but it's just not of interest to me. Maybe to a younger audience, you know, it's not everyone's got a dislike to them. A younger audience might use them a lot. Let me know if you're one of my younger viewers and you do use animojis on a regular basis. Let me know in the comment section below. David James, dark mode is very good, as are the security updates, stacks and so on. The macOS was by far the best update. Totally agree. Totally agree. Sam Kibbe, perfect pronunciation on the last name, Dave. Not many people get it right. That's good to know. Thank you very, very much. Paul David is also still waiting for a new Mac Mini. I'm not sure whether we're ever going to get one. I think it might be one of those products that Apple have forgotten about. And it's a shame because it's a great, great computer. In fact, I've still got one. Not personally, but in the family, one that I passed down to somebody, and it's still running great today. Mac Mini is absolutely awesome. Big Ben Airways, hi Dave, I watched the whole keynote and was stunned with all the new additions. That's really good. I'm glad you were impressed. Big Ben Airways also asking, will you be upgrading to iOS 12 and the new macOS? I will be upgrading them. I normally put a beta version on one of my devices and then wait for the full version before I put it onto my production kit. David James, I really need to update my MacBook Pro as my 2011 is on its last leg, so I'm hoping we get hardware soon. So am I really am. And I just want to give you my closing thoughts on what happened today. I went into it with a wish list. If you watched my video yesterday, you'll know what that was, and I knew what was going to happen. I knew it was going to be focusing and concentrating on the software. So I'm really impressed with the macOS updates. I think they are very, very good. I think we're going to get a nice stable OS with macOS Mojave, as they called it. Less interested in the Apple tvOS update and in the WatchOS update, although WatchOS did have some nice improvements. And iOS 12, quite disappointed personally. The biggest omission, even though this is primarily for software, I think even though we weren't going to get new MacBook Pros, a new HomePod, a new iMac, a new iPad Pro, etc, etc, even though those weren't on the agenda, I do think Apple made a big mistake in ignoring their Pro users and not even talking about the new Mac Pro. We're still using a late 2013 piece of hardware that is more or less impossible to upgrade, and I think that they should have at least addressed that and said, this is where we've got to. We've still got a long way to go. We're still working to a 2019 release, but this is sort of our concept for the machine, and this is the stage we're at. We're at sort of testing stage, and we've got another 6 months to go before we're going to move on to the final stage. You know, give us something, give us some hope that you are going to be upgrading the Mac Pro to something that we've all been waiting for. I get a lot of people on Twitter and also in the comments and also private emails asking me, should they wait for new MacBook Pro, should they wait for a new Mac Pro, or should they just move across to Windows? The question comes up a lot, and I think a lot of people are not prepared to wait anymore, and especially video editors, which seems to be the bulk of questions I get, are moving across to using Adobe Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve and moving across to the Windows platform because they can get a really powerful machine. They're not prepared to wait anymore for the new Mac Pro. So I think Apple made a big mistake not addressing that in WWDC. So anyway, that is pretty much it for this video. Thank you very much to all of you for tuning in. If you've got any comments or questions at all, leave them in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in another video tomorrow on the Geekanoids channel, so please do subscribe. Goodbye for now.